How you doing, everybody? Hi, John and Junior and Mr. Balju. Abdul, how you guys doing? Let's see what's going on. Where's Geezer? Geezer must be around here somewhere. Okay, is the sound and the video okay? Hello? Hey, Abdul, great. Good. Well, today, what I'd like to do is to talk about, hey, Mark, how you doing? Is to talk about the sort of between now, what is it, in the next 5 years. I was watching the Bloomberg report, which is an economic report they have on different kinds of things, commodities, stocks, and bonds, and they got a lot of people who have their ideas about the economy down the road. And I was listening to this one economist, and hi, William, and he said that it's probably going to take until about 2025 to get everything back on track again, because so many people have been hurt just incredibly badly, especially small businesses, things like restaurants, salon, all kinds of parts of the economy that affect every other part of the economy. And so he said it's going to take, he said, no matter who is elected, it's going to take about that long to get back on track. Hey, Thomas, how you doing, man? So what I wanted to talk about, so let's sort of look out over the horizon if we can. Hey, Thomas. Oh, there you are again. Abdul, do you think that the watch prices will go down if a second down happens worldwide where they rise back up? That's Abdul. That's exactly the question I've got to ask. The certain watches seem to weather just about anything. Rolex being the best example, and But even Rolex, I think, and like a lot of these others, is that they're going to have their ups and downs. And there's sort of like I'll call a shadow market, which is really the used market and I guess the ones that they didn't sell market. Okay, sort of the secondary market. Say, by the way, right before we got started this morning, I got an email or a message or something. I forgot who it was. Anyway, they said that Parmigiani had just called back all of these watches that they had, and they're going to have a big sale on them because they have sort of this new line of watches that, like I said, this is the first I heard about it. And so there may be some Parmigianis that they're literally dumping, which means the prices will drop through the floor, which is a good thing for us collectors. But then they're coming out with a whole new line of watches. I've seen it's been happening with a lot of brands. They sort of have been making certain kinds of adjustments that are, hate to say it, but they may be a little less creative and a little more sellable. That would be from a business point of view. Now, on the other hand, you still have the guys in the AHCI, the independents, and they're a funny bunch. They really are. They're like, you take FP Journe, and my God, their prices suddenly they become rare as hen's teeth. I used to, go to Chrono 24, and and there were chronomet blues all over the place for under 20,000, and now they've gone up to 60,000. So it becomes, becomes really very, very hard. I have a couple FP joints. I couldn't afford either one of them now. This is just from 4 years ago. So, when we look at the economy and the economics of watch collection, I think one of the things we can know, you can have a really good watch at a very low price, relatively speaking. For example, if you get a brand new, let's say, H. Moser for $10,000 that was originally a $25,000 watch and worth every penny of it, in the sense that you had the horology, you had everything that you want in a $25,000 watch. But people didn't like it for whatever reason, the price is going down. Now what you're seeing with H. Moser, you're seeing this whole streamliner line of watches and all of these really interesting watches coming out with Adventure and so on and so forth. On the other hand, if you take Rolex, if you're a Rolex fanboy, you probably know this. The changes are very small. And it's sort of the idea, I think to a great extent, Rolex is working on the assumption, if it doesn't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They also have, if it doesn't sell, dump it. And I think I think I heard that the Air King, the one I like, they're dumping the Air King. It's just not that popular. And yeah, that might be opportunities to pick up Air Kings at a good price. So I don't know. But I think what's going to happen, who is this sort of what we'll call the new post-pandemic depression, or what do they call it? Recession, right? Whatever it's going to be, it's not going to be fun. I mean, the pandemic hasn't been fun either. And so you're going to have people trying to rebuild, especially small businesses, more than anything else. And they're going to be, a lot of money is going to be needed for them to sort of recoup and regroup and come back. And so at that point, you're wondering, well, is anyone going to be spending the kind of money that we do on watches? I mean, even a simple luxury watch that's well built, has its own movement, a few other things, or a good movement in it. Are they going to be, is that some of the people going to be buying those or not? Are they all going to go to the secondary market and find bargains? And maybe that'll happen. I don't know. This is something I think we need to we need to talk about. What are some of your views on this? Because it's like, I tend to listen to economists with, there's a reason they call economics a dismal science. But on the other hand, it's sort of like, I don't know, drawing straws or drawing beans out of a jar to make your decisions. So it's the kind of thing, I think, that it's always going to be, iffy. There was this guy who used to be an economic advisor to the lumpen proletariat, I guess, and he would scream about this and, this is this. But then after there was a total boom and flop in the economy, they didn't say, oh man, I guess I got that wrong. But instead they'd come up with all of these reasons why that happened. I used to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. I think it was back in '87, after this total collapse. Just all of a sudden one day it went from here to bam. And I was so mad at the Wall Street Journal for not telling me about it ahead of time that I dropped my subscription. But that's, the point being, to make any kind of pontificating statement saying this is the way it's going to be, you're on thin ice. I mean, maybe afterwards everything will come booming back and people will be buying watches like there's no tomorrow. In fact, I think during the pandemic, a lot of people have, well, I got, not going out to dinner, not going on cruises, not doing this, not doing that. I got all of this extra money, so I think I'll buy a watch. So, I don't know. Okay, it's a growth market. Take top 1% of planet's wealth, 80 million people, all in including Patek Philippe. There is plenty of demand driving the market. Yeah, this is exactly what I think. There's that. Okay, we have the imbalance in wealth has gotten worse, at least in our country, over the years. I mean, back in the 50s, there was much more equality, and in fact, all the way up into the 1980s, there was a lot. And then they changed their mind and saying, well, this is what we really ought to have. And that changed a lot of things. But Mr. Valju, you're absolutely right about, we have for some reason, here I am, a retired professor. I didn't go into it as a get rich quick scheme, but I could figure out ways to get watches nevertheless. So it's a funny kind of thing. Okay, let's see. Hey, Junior, let's see. A lot of those people are buying watches as their currencies and dumping due to inflation, so store value. That's true too. There's something else that I call the Rolex collector strategy. And what the way the Rolex collector strategy is something like this is you buy one Rolex as a start of either a type collection, we'll call it that, the type being Rolex. And then you have it for a few years, and then you trade it in, and you get back very close what you paid for it, and then you get another Rolex, and so on and so forth. And so you're really not having to spend much money after the initial input. At least that's the theory. I don't know how well that works on Rolex collectors. But that's one strategy. And so this new thing, I don't know how much it's going to affect. I'll tell you though, this jewelry store where I called the other day about a Rolex, we bought stuff there, this jewelry store, for years. And the first time I call them and ask them about it, they tell me, oh, I can't, they can't tell me because I have to go down there and see it. Middle of a pandemic, I'm not going anywhere unless there's something that I have a good chance of taking a look at, which is, to me, they got it all wrong. So they just blew their chance of course, Rolex is the best watch they have. They used to have Patek Philippe, but they're part of a bigger monster. Okay, buffering problems. Buffering problems. Okay, Johnny, John, did you get them back now? Are the buffering problems still with us, or did they go away? Hello? Okay, it's okay now. Good. What happens is that, I don't know, it's like, I used to work on this stuff. I wrote code for it, and there was basically, if you've got a ton of bandwidth, and the amount of bandwidth that we're getting these days is pretty good. And I see more and more people coming to our little stream, our live stream now. Okay. So anyway, given that, so we have sort of one view is that everything's going to be hunky-dory, and the people, the 1% of the planet's wealth, which is concentrated, and you're talking about 80 million people as your market. That's a lot of people. And of course, there's a lot of a lot of effort going after those people. And I tell you something interesting too. Something's been happening to me. I've been getting these emails from these companies, and they want me to sort of help them get, they want some advice on, well, we're thinking of doing this and this. So what do you think? Do you think this is possible? These are all watch companies, or sort of budding watch companies. And what I got was from a guy who he had done some research, and he talked to all of these watch sellers and decided that there was a huge market for between $200 and $600. And would I mind helping them out? What would I recommend? Now, it's funny, once you really get into watch collection, $200 to $500 or $600 is nothing. Before you get into it, it's a lot of money to put down for a watch. And it's really unusual because there's so much money that people can spend. I mean, when I say so much, when $20,000 becomes sort of a barrier, that's a pretty high barrier. I mean, I just used to buy cars for that much, and some of these watches cost more than houses and so forth. And so you're trying to get all of this stuff into some way that it makes sense to buy a watch. And in part, it's just having a lot of money that always helps, always. But how are you going to allocate that? Maybe you want to buy a boat or an airplane or something else. I don't know. But I do know right now is that things are seem to be going very well for the watch companies. So going back to this one where you have, if you have a watch and you're selling it for $20,000, we'll say the retail markup is $10,000. So you're really dealing with a $10,000 watch. And then if you back it up and how much is paid for marketing and all of the other real costs, you're getting a watch in terms of excuse me, you're getting a watch in terms of the costs of putting it together, the cost of the parts, the cost of the R&D, the cost of the design, and so on and so forth. And I mean, so when you buy a watch, you're not the metal itself is almost incidental as far as the price of the watch is concerned. And so what you want, and we all want, is a watch that has good components, and has a process that will put it together well, and all of these other things. And then on top of that, you have to pile on marketing to sell it. I would think watch companies that sell online will benefit most from the lockdowns. I think we will blow out sales from these companies when that happens. It's already been happening, Abdul. I've seen it happen already, and it happens in a very interesting way. For years, literally for years, over 20 years ago, I was talking about brick and mortars don't make sense anymore, except for those people who want to go in and they want to see the feel of the watch. They want the heft of the watch, just sort of getting a sense of a watch. I haven't bought a watch in years that's how I got it. Most of I got some other ways. Hi, Zahid. How you doing, man? Gary, good day. Tim, how are you? Heading to Portland, Maine. Well, that's always a thrill. Hey, Dennis, in construction, presently we are lacking certain materials which are from Mexico. These are basic materials. The problem must be the same watch manufacturers, which will increase in price. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are other things that are going to increase the cost. This is the rule of thumb that I use. We used to use it in publishing, and that is that a watch costs or a book costs 10 times the list price on a book is basically 10 times the manufacturing cost. Now, the manufacturing cost is essentially how much it costs to have a book taken to the printer and doing all of these things. Well, what's happened though is that more and more books are online. I mean, you Kindle, for example. Most of the New Yorker that I get, by the time I get my paper copy, I've already read the whole thing online. So that's another thing. As a collector and buyer, you learn the watch, like the housing market. You'll know $45,000 for a first generation datograph is a fair deal compared to $1,200 for a Seiko Prestige. Might be overpriced in its tier. Yeah, that's very true, Mr. Bellevue. That's a good point. I mean, this is why I am always nagging everybody. Find out as much as you can about everything about a watch. Everything, the movement, the case, the materials, the watchmaker, everything. The more you know, the better the deal you can get. And let me tell you something. There was this one dealer I dealt with who had done all of this research on the watch that he was selling me. I ended up knowing more about it than he did. And I was about as merciless as a watch seller when it came to bargain with a guy, because the guy didn't know that much about it. And I had him convinced that it wasn't worth as much as he wanted to charge me. And I'm sure that he got it for much less than he sold it to me for, but that's not the point. The point is that I was able to save several $1,000s. And the people who really know everything, but they're not forthcoming about it, and that's the people who actually make the watch. If you have a watch, and again, I'm not picking on Rolex or picking on Omega or Patek Philippe or any of the other mass-produced watches, but you have your unit prices go down when you use the same machinery and design year after year after year, with a few little changes that are sort of moduled in to a watch, so nothing else is disturbed. This was the same thing with object-oriented programming, especially the design pattern. Set those things up, and you use the same program over and over again, but it's set up so that you can add modules to it without, making the whole thing go boom. That's the same in the watch business. If you have a case and a case maker and all of these other things ready to go. This is why when Soprod, when they had the A10, it was from the a 4L Seiko movement, and that 4L Seiko movement had all of the posts and all of everything that a very popular ETA had. And so they didn't copy it. They simply made sure that it would fit into the same mold. Now, with watch companies, with popular watches, my God, the profit margin goes way up because they don't have the initial. I mean, if they were done years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, they're still using essentially the same, same everything. I do think that high-end watches like a Patek Philippe or VC, the AD or boutique, you get the expectance. I usually show them the gray market price if price is lower, and they do match it at least. Well, that's good. I mean, that's fair is fair, Tim. I don't go out of my way. In fact, I rarely even consider it unless they have something that I really want, going to the most expensive and stuff. And you get all of this song and dance about, oh, we do wonderful things as far as service is concerned. I found out this. Here's a tip. If you buy a watch from an AD, and then service time comes and you go to the wherever their service center is and have it serviced, they'll do it for the same price as though you bought it from an AD. The AD can protect you from two things. One, from fake ones, and two, from from paying too little. So what was the other thing? Sometimes you'll have more access to newer ones. The other thing, though, is that I don't think you have to have a certain mindset, and we've got to check our mindset. And I mean that we have to ask ourselves: is the way I feel or think about a watch because of the advertising or because of the horology? I mean, you have people who don't have a whit of sense giving advice on why you should buy X, Y, or Z watch, and they know very little about watches, or they act like they know. They seem to know very little. I don't know. Yeah, it does exactly, Abdul. Knowledge is power. If you don't have it, man, they just drop a bar of soap right at your foot. Hey, Ziomigu, how you doing, man? They got no. That's one thing we have to be aware of. We really do. I think though that this coming sort of a depression-like situation. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. There could suddenly be something happen where the kind of available funds that anyone may have simply may not include luxury watches. I'm trying to think what happened during the Great Depression, the worldwide depression. What happened to the watch prices and buying and so forth? You know why? I think it's not comparable because that was sort of before the quartz crisis. The child of the quartz crisis is high horology. And this was because in order for mechanical watches to sell, they had to sort of invent this kind of hand-done master watch. Patek Philippe is incredibly successful at it. Vacheron, Constantin, Audemars Piguet, all Lange and Sunde. Those companies have been very successful. Of those, two of them were bought by Richemont. And Richemont is a funny kind of thing. I'm going to talk about some of these big group owned or big company owned stables, if you will. And at some point, it's like, what is that? Where does that leave us? When you look at Breguet and Blancpain, I don't know. I just don't know about them. I mean, here they're both basically they're owned by Swatch, and I wonder if at some point Swatch isn't going to say, these two watches are competing against each other, or these two watch brands are. I don't know. We'll see. There are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences too. Hey, Flippin' Zippo, how you doing, man? Indrajit, you are late is right, and we're about ready to wrap up here. Maybe the 87 and 2009 recessions are better indicators, but now the watch market is pumped with a lot of big groups that turn luxury into money, so it's very hard to foresee what might happen. Could be. You know something? There's this old saying, it sounds like it comes from Ben Jonson, and they were talking about a gentleman who suddenly has run into financial straits. And they're talking about first they'll give up this, and this they'll give up this. And the very last thing they give up will be their club, because their club is their ultimate status symbol. That may be true with watches. You know, if I didn't have my moon phase, what would they think of me? I don't know. We'll see, though. That may be the case. So, well, listen, my time is up. I'm sorry, Flippin' Zippo and Indrajit. I'm sorry about you guys missed it, but We'll be back at 4 p.m. New York time. I think it's 2,000 hours GMT or UTC. Okay, guys, take care. And if you can make it this afternoon, I'll see you then.